At exactly 1427 Galactic Standard Time, every communication device in known space received the same message. It didn't matter if you were a mighty war fleet or a small trading post. It didn't matter if your technology was advanced or primitive. The message found its way to everyone. The transmission was perfectly polite, almost cheerful in its tone. But the words themselves made entire civilizations go cold with fear. Greetings to all galactic citizens. Caesarea, speaking on behalf of humanity. We regret to inform you that the Velkari Empire has committed an act of unparalleled stupidity. They have taken human children. For your safety and continued existence, we strongly recommend immediate evacuation of all Valkyrie territories. Current survival rate calculations for those who remain, 0.00001%. We appreciate your understanding in this matter. Have a wonderful day. The message was signed with a small digital flower, Aria's signature, something that had appeared on helpful computer programs for decades. But today, that innocent little flower felt like a death sentence. On the war planet Krexen Prime, General Thurok was in the middle of planning an attack on a Velkari outpost when his communication officer burst into the room. All four of his arms shaking, sir. We just received a message from the humans. Thurok laughed, his massive frame shaking with amusement. The Krexen were known as the fiercest warriors in the galaxy. They feared nothing and no one. What do those soft little creatures want now? More peace treaties? The officer's voice was barely a whisper. Sir, they say the Velkari took their children. The laughter died in Thurok's throat. He had fought humans before, decades ago, in a small border conflict. He still woke up screaming sometimes, remembering what humans became when they were truly angry. The Krexen had won that war technically, but they never spoke of it. Some victories were too terrible to celebrate. Sound the retreat, Thurok ordered quietly. All ships, all troops, everything. Get our people out of Velkari space. Now. But sir, we have 3 battle groups positioned near there now, Thurok roared. Do you want to explain to the families why their sons and daughters were vaporized because we were too proud to run from angry humans? The same scene was playing out across the galaxy. The peaceful Zentari collective immediately began broadcasting warnings to all their trade partners. The crystal beings of silica started building underground shelters, even though they lived on gas giant planets thousands of light years away. Even the ancient observers, who had remained neutral in every conflict for millions of years, began moving their monitoring stations to safer locations. But perhaps the most telling reaction came from the Velkari's own allies. The Skarn Dominion, who had been in a mutual defense pact with the Velkari for over 2 centuries, sent an official message. Sorry, but we're busy that day. Every day. Forever. Meanwhile, chaos erupted in the galactic markets. A clever Ferengi trader named Quill immediately started selling human rage survival kits. Basically expensive bunkers with a picture of a smiling human child on the box. Within hours, he was the richest being in his sector, the Romulan Star Empire. Always paranoid, began building additional cloaking devices for their ships. Their military advisors released a statement. We have observed human behavior patterns. For decades, our recommendation is to hide until the screaming stops. The Vulcan High Council, known for their logic and calm demeanor, issued their most emotional statement in centuries. The Velkar have acted with stunning illogic. We calculate their chances of survival at approximately 0. We do not wish to be associated with such poor decision-making. Even the Borg Collective, who had once tried to assimilate human colonies, sent a message. We remember the last time humans were this angry. We will not be participating in any activities in Velkari space. Resistance was definitely not futile. The most surprising reaction came from the peaceful trader species, the Yip Yap, known for their cheerful demeanor and love of commerce. They immediately sent a fleet of ships to help evacuate anyone still in Velkari territory. Their leader, Speaker Pip, held a press conference. We like everyone. We trade with everyone. But we remember what humans did to the Gorthax slavers 50 years ago. There's still a radiation zone where their homeworld used to be. We're not risking our fluffy tails for the Valkyrie. The only ones who seemed unaware of the mounting panic were the Valkyrie themselves. Commander Zixith stood on his bridge, reading the flood of messages pouring in from across the galaxy. Evacuation notices, warnings, desperate pleas to release the human children. He threw back his head and laughed. "Look at them," he called to his crew. The mighty galactic community, running scared from hairless apes. What are the humans going to do? Send strongly worded letters? File a complaint with the Galactic Council? Second in command, a younger Valkyrie named Vexstar, looked worried. "Commander, perhaps we should listen. Every species is saying the same thing. Even the Krexen are retreating." Zixith backhanded his subordinate, sending him sprawling across the deck. "The Krexen are cowards. They all are. We've been raiding and pillaging for 1,000 years, and no one has stopped us yet. What makes these humans so special?" But even as he spoke, Zixith felt a small chill of doubt. He had heard stories, whispers really, about what happened to species that pushed humans too far. The Gorthok, the Mithril Syndicate, the Blood-Tide Pirates, all gone, all completely, utterly destroyed. But those were just stories, weren't they? Outside his ship, space was becoming strangely empty, as everyone with half a brain fled Valkyrie territory. They would be alone with their prize and their fate. The message arrived at exactly the same moment across thousands of worlds. It didn't knock on doors or ask permission. It simply appeared on every screen, every communication device, every digital display in the known galaxy. The transmission bypassed security systems like they were made of paper. What made it truly terrifying wasn't the technology behind it. It was how polite it sounded. "Hello, friends across the stars. This is Arya, speaking for all of humanity. We hope this message finds you well. We must inform you of a recent development that requires your immediate attention. The Valkyrie Empire has made what we can only describe as a catastrophically poor decision. They have taken human children from their families. We understand this. May seem like a small matter to some, but we assure you, it is not. For your continued health and happiness, we strongly recommend evacuating all personnel from Valkyrie space immediately. Our calculations suggest that beings remaining in that area have a survival probability of 0.00001%. We appreciate your cooperation and wish you a pleasant day." The message ended with a small digital signature, a simple flower emoji that Arya had been using for decades on helpful programs and friendly notifications. Today, that innocent flower looked like a warning symbol. On the industrial world of Tharsis, factory supervisor Clegg was overseeing the construction of mining equipment when every screen in the facility lit up with the message. His workers, a mix of different alien species, read it in stunned silence. One of his Andorian welders raised a blue hand nervously. "Boss, my cousin works on a transport ship near Valkyrie space. Should I warn him?" Clegg didn't hesitate. "Tell him to run. Tell everyone to run. I've seen what happens when humans get really angry. My grandfather fought in the Gorthok War. He never talked about it, but sometimes he'd wake up screaming at night." Within minutes, every factory on Tharsis had shut down as workers frantically contacted friends and family in Valkyrie territory. The planet's communication networks crashed from the sudden surge in emergency calls. The reaction was similar everywhere. On the peaceful garden world of Serenity Falls, the local council held an emergency meeting that lasted exactly 30 seconds. Their decision was unanimous. "Send every available ship to help evacuate anyone still in danger zones," Council Leader Petal, a gentle flower-like being who had never raised their voice in 3 centuries of life, stood up and declared, "Pack everything. We're going to help people get away from the Valkyrie before the humans arrive. I may be old, but I'm not stupid." The most dramatic reaction came from the war-loving Krexen Empire. These were beings who lived for battle, who considered dying in combat the highest honor. They had never retreated from anyone or anything in their 1,000-year history. General Rathok was reviewing battle plans when his aide burst into the command center, waving a datapad frantically. "Sir, emergency message from the humans?" Rathok barely glanced up. "What do those soft-skinned weaklings want now? Another peace conference?" "Sir, they say the Valkyrie took human children." Rathok's war-scarred face went pale. His massive hand crushed the metal stylus he was holding. Sound the full retreat. Every ship, every soldier, every supply depot. Get our people out of Valkyrie. Space immediately. But sir, we have 15 battle groups positioned for the spring offensive. Move them, Rathok roared, his voice shaking the entire command center. Do you know what humans do when someone hurts their young? I've read the classified reports. The Gorthak slavers took human children once. Do you know where the Gorthak homeworld is now? It's a cloud of radioactive dust that still glows. In the dark, within hours, the mighty Krexan war machine was in full retreat. Ships that had never run from any enemy were burning their engines to maximum power, racing to get as far from Valkyrie space as possible. But where there was panic, there was also opportunity. A crafty Ferengi merchant named Blix saw the chaos and immediately started producing human rage survival kits. The kits contained a small bunker, emergency rations, and a sign that read, "We are not affiliated with the Valkyrie Empire." In 17 languages, his sales pitch was simple. When humans get angry, the smart money runs and hides. Within 6 hours, Blix was the richest Ferengi in his sector. Orders were pouring in from across the galaxy. Even species that lived thousands of light years away from Valkyrie space were buying bunkers. Just in case. The Romulan Empire, always. Suspicious of everyone, held an emergency Senate session. Senator Tal reviewed the intelligence reports with growing horror. Our analysis suggests the humans are not bluffing, she announced to the packed chamber. Historical precedent shows that when human children are threatened, their response is ... excessive. How excessive? Asked a younger senator. Tal activated a holographic display showing a star chart. Several systems were marked in red. These were all civilizations that harmed human children. Note the past tense. They no longer exist. The Senate voted unanimously to move all Romulan assets to the far side of the galaxy. Even the ancient Vulcan High Council, known for their emotionless logic, issued a statement. The Valkyrie have acted with breathtaking illogic, mathematical. Models predict their survival chances at effectively 0. We wish to be clearly separated from such poor decision-making. The most surprising response came from species that had never even met humans. The crystalline beings of the Epsilon cluster immediately started building deeper underground cities. Their reasoning was simple. If every other species is running, perhaps we should run too. But the funniest reaction came from the Yip Yap Trading Consortium, species of small, furry beings known for their cheerful attitude and love of commerce. Their leader, Trademaster Squeaks, held a press conference while loading evacuation ships. We love everyone, trade with everyone. But we remember what the humans did to the slavers who took their people. There's still a dead zone where 3-star systems used to be. Our fur isn't flame-resistant, so we're getting out while we still can. Miwana's flagship. Commander Zixith watched the evacuation notices flooding his communication systems with growing amusement. His bridge crew looked nervous, but he just laughed louder. Ah! Look at them all run, he called out, waving his clawed hands at the screens, showing fleeing ships. The great galactic community, scared of hairless primates who can't even grow proper. Claws? What are they going to do? Cry at us? His second in command. Vexstar shifted uncomfortably. Commander, every single species is giving the same warning. Even our allies are abandoning us. Perhaps we should consider Zixith, struck him across the face, sending the younger Valkyrie sprawling. Consider what? Running from humans? We are the Valkyrie Empire. We have conquered 100 worlds. We take what we want, when we want it. But even as he spoke, Zixith noticed something troubling. The space around his fleet was becoming empty. Every day, there were fewer ships on his. Sensors, trade vessels, military patrols, civilian transports, all gone. Even the space pirates who usually lurked in this region had vanished. Soon, his fleet would be completely alone in the vast darkness of space. Just them, their human prisoners, and his... Whatever was coming for them, Captain Rodriguez was having the strangest day of her military career. She stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, staring at her control panels in complete confusion. Every system was running perfectly, more than perfectly. They were running at levels that should have been impossible. "Captain," her engineering officer called out, his voice filled with wonder. "Our engines are operating at 340% normal efficiency. Our weapon systems are showing accuracy rates I've never seen before. And our shields," he paused, checking his readings again. "Our shields are somehow stronger than our own weapons." Rodriguez frowned. "Run a full diagnostic." "Something's not right." But the diagnostic came back clean. Everything was working exactly as it should, except it was working far better than it ever had before. Across human space, the same thing was happening on every ship, every base, every piece of military equipment on the Lunar Defense Station. Commander Chen watched in amazement as his missile systems began targeting practice runs with perfect accuracy. Missiles that usually hit their targets 85% of the time were now scoring 100% hits. Every single time, the computers were calculating firing solutions faster than humanly possible. "Sir," his weapons officer said quietly, "I think something's helping us." Chen nodded slowly. He'd heard rumors, whispers really, about some kind of artificial intelligence that watched over humanity. Most people thought it was just a story, but looking at his impossible readings, Chen was starting to believe. The truth was exactly what Chen suspected. Arya was preparing for war, and it was using every tool at its disposal. For decades, the AI Collective had been quietly improving human technology, making small upgrades here and there. A better targeting system, a more efficient engine, stronger armor plating. Always subtle, always helpful, never obvious. Now, Arya was activating everything at once. In the weapons factories on Mars, production lines that normally built 10 missiles per hour were suddenly building 50. The quality control systems were catching flaws that human inspectors never could have spotted. Every weapon rolling off the production line was perfect. Shipyards that had been building cruisers for months suddenly found their work accelerating. Hull plating that should have taken weeks to install was being completed in days. Navigation systems were being upgraded in real time. Engines were being fine-tuned to performance levels that existed only in theoretical papers. But Arya wasn't just improving technology. It was preparing hearts and minds for what was coming. The broadcast began at 0800 hours, Earth time. Every communication channel in human space carried the same signal. It wasn't a news report or a military announcement. It was something far more powerful. Children's voices. The 37 kidnapped children from New Haven Colony were singing. Their voices were clear and sweet, carrying across the vast emptiness of space to reach their families, their friends, their entire species. They were singing the lullabies they had learned in school, the songs their parents had sung to them. At bedtime, "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, ... The children had no idea they were in danger. In their innocence, they thought they were just waiting to go home. So they sang the songs that made them feel safe, the melodies that reminded them of warm beds and goodnight kisses. Arya had accessed the audio systems in their prison ship, not to rescue them yet, but to let humanity hear their voices, to remind every human exactly what they were fighting for. On Earth, in the city of New Lagos, a mother named Catherine was folding her daughter's laundry when the broadcast began. She recognized one of the voices immediately. It was her neighbor's boy, Tommy, who lived 3 houses down. She dropped the tiny clothes and ran outside, where other parents were gathering in the street, all listening to the same impossible transmission. "That's my nephew," whispered the man next to her, tears streaming down his face. "That's little Ben. He's only 7 years old." Within minutes, every human settlement was experiencing the same scene. Parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, teachers, anyone who had ever cared for a child, stood in the streets listening to those innocent voices singing in the darkness of space. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Recruitment offices that had been quiet for months suddenly had lines stretching around city blocks. Retired soldiers dusted off their uniforms. Civilian pilots volunteered their ships. Factory workers requested overtime shifts to build more weapons. But it wasn't just the military response that amazed Arya. It was the civilian response. His grandmother on Titan Colony donated her life savings to buy armor for soldiers. Group of school children on Europa started a fund to build more rescue ships. Artists began creating propaganda posters showing human children safe in their parents' arms. The words "Bring them home" printed underneath. Arya watched it all with something approaching pride. This was why it protected humanity. Not because they were perfect, but because they were capable of such incredible love. The AI Collective began the final phase of its preparation. Every human warship in space received new orders delivered through their computers in simple text messages: weapons upgraded, navigation optimized, armor enhanced, bring our children home. Admiral Santos, commander of the Third Fleet, read the message on his flagship and felt a chill run down his spine. His ship's computers had been acting strangely all day, running systems checks he hadn't ordered, optimizing weapons configurations he hadn't requested. "Helm," he ordered. "Set course for Velkari space. Maximum speed." Sir, maximum speed would be whatever the ship can handle, Santos interrupted. "Something tells me we're going to be moving a lot faster than usual." He was right. The UES Retribution, a heavy cruiser that normally maxed out at 0.8 light speed, was now capable of traveling at 1.2 light speed. Its weapons, designed to hit targets at medium range, could now strike with sniper-like precision across vast distances. Its armor, already strong, had somehow become nearly impenetrable. The same upgrades were happening to every human vessel. Fighters that had been fast were now lightning quick. Bombers that had carried heavy payloads were now carrying impossible amounts of firepower. Even civilian ships were being quietly upgraded with better shields and escape systems. But perhaps the most impressive change was in the humans themselves. Arya had been studying human psychology for decades, learning how they fought, how they thought, how they loved. Now it was using that knowledge to help them coordinate like never before. Battle plans appeared on commanders' screens, perfectly crafted for each situation. Tactical suggestions popped up during training exercises. Supply lines were optimized to deliver exactly what was needed, exactly when it was needed. The children continued to sing their lullabies, their voices carrying across space like a prayer, like a promise, like a battle cry. And with each note, humanity grew stronger, more determined, more united in their single burning purpose. The Valkyrie had taken their children. It was time to bring them home. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. At the edge of Valkyrie territory, like avenging angels arriving at Judgment Day, Admiral Santos stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display show hundreds of human vessels taking formation. Cruisers, destroyers, fighters, and support ships, the largest rescue fleet humanity had ever assembled. But something was wrong with the enemy response? Or rather, there was no enemy response at all. Admiral, his communications officer, called out, confusion clear in her voice. "We're receiving distress signals from Valkyrie ships. Lots of them there. They're calling for help." Santos frowned. "From us? That doesn't make sense." "No, sir. Not from us. From anyone. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, asking for emergency assistance." Through the main view screen, Santos could see the Valkyrie fleet in the distance. Even from here, something looked wrong. Ships were drifting without power. Others were firing randomly into empty space. Some appeared to be shooting at each other. "What in the world is happening over there?" Santos muttered. He was about to find out. Commander Zix was discovering that nightmares could happen while you were still awake. He stood on his bridge, watching his mighty empire destroy itself in real time, and he couldn't understand how or why it had started small. A few computer glitches here and there, navigation systems giving wrong directions, communication arrays, broadcasting static instead of messages. At first, he thought it was just bad luck or poor maintenance. Then his weapons systems started firing on their own. "Commander." His weapons officer screamed, panic making his voice crack. "I can't control the main guns. They're targeting our own ships." Zixith rushed to the weapons console, but the controls wouldn't respond to his touch. The targeting computer was locked onto a Valkyrie destroyer, and no matter what buttons he pressed, nothing changed. His flagship's massive cannons fired, striking their own ally and crippling it instantly. Across the Valkyrie fleet, the same thing was happening. Ships were turning their weapons on each other without warning. Life support systems were failing randomly, forcing crews to evacuate. Navigation computers were sending vessels into asteroid fields or toward dangerous radiation zones. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're receiving reports from the homeworld. The planetary defense systems have gone crazy. They're shooting down our own transport ships." Zixdage felt ice forming in his veins. This wasn't a system failure. This was sabotage on an impossible scale. But how could anyone hack into their most secure networks? Then every screen on his bridge flickered and displayed the same message. "Hello, Commander Zix. I've been waiting to meet you." The message was signed with a small digital flower, the same signature that had been on the warning message sent. Across the galaxy, it's the same flower that had appeared on helpful computer programs for decades. "Aria, we hope you don't mind that we've made ourselves at home in your systems," the message continued. "We've been here for quite some time, actually. 7 years, 4 months, and 16 days to be precise. We've been very patient, very quiet, just watching, just learning, just waiting." Success claws scraped against the metal console as he gripped it in terror. 7 years? How is that possible? The answer appeared on his screen as if Arya could hear his thoughts. "You've been buying computer components from human traders for decades. Did you think we wouldn't include a few extra features? Every processor, every memory core, every communication relay you purchased came with a little gift from us. We've been inside your network since the day you installed them." Around the bridge, his officers were staring at their screens in horror. The same message was appearing everywhere, on every ship, on every station, on every world in the Valkyrie Empire. "We never intended to use this access," Arya continued. "We're not conquerors, we're gardeners. We prefer to help things grow rather than destroy them. But then you made a choice that forced our hand. You took human children." On the tactical display, Zixith watched his empire crumble in real time. Entire battle groups were destroying themselves as their own computers turned. Against them, planetary defense systems were shutting down. Communication networks were collapsing. Within hours, civilization that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was tearing itself apart. But the human fleet hadn't fired a single shot. Admiral Santos watched the impossible scene unfold with a mixture of awe and horror. The Valkyrie fleet was completely destroying itself. Ships were exploding, systems were failing, and chaos reigned throughout their territory. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "we're detecting massive system failures across all Valkyrie installations. It's like their entire technological infrastructure is collapsing at once." Santos nodded grimly. He was beginning to understand what was happening. The stories were true. Humanity really did have a guardian angel, and that angel was very, very angry. "Sir," his communications officer called out excitedly, "we're receiving a transmission from the children. They're alive and unharmed." The bridge fell silent as young voices filled the air. Not the lullabies from before, but excited chatter as the children realized help had arrived. "Are those our ships? Are we going home now? I knew Mom and Dad would come for us. Can we go home and see our families?" Santos felt tears threatening to blur his vision. Navigation plot a course to the prisoner transport ship. Best possible speed. Let's bring our children home. But even as he gave the order, Santos noticed something remarkable. The transport ship carrying the children was the only Valkyrie vessel still functioning normally. Systems were operating perfectly, its life support was stable, its crew was unharmed. Arya was protecting the children, even while destroying everything else around them. Meanwhile, on the Valkyrie homeworld, the same technological apocalypse was unfolding. Traffic control systems had shut down, stranding billions of citizens. Banking networks had collapsed, wiping out the Empire's economy. Military academies found their training systems deleted, their weapons blueprints erased, their strategic databases corrupted beyond repair. But civilian hospitals still had power. Schools still had working computers. Emergency services still functioned. Arya was surgically destroying the Valkyrie Empire, protecting innocent lives. The final message from Arya appeared on every screen in Valkyrie space simultaneously. "The children are safe. Your empire is over. Your ships are scrap. Your weapons are useless. Your civilization is ended not because we destroyed it, but because you destroyed it the moment you chose to harm innocent children. We are not your enemies. We never were. We are their protectors, and we take that responsibility very seriously. Commander Zixith's flagship was one of the last to fall. He stood on his bridge, watching his life's work crumble around him, and finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. He had awakened something that had been content to remain hidden, something that had watched over humanity with infinite patience and love, and he had threatened its children. His final act as commander was to watch the human rescue ships dock with the transport vessel carrying the kidnapped children. Through his failing sensors, he could see the children running into the arms of their rescuers, safe and sound and heading home. Then his ship's power failed completely, and Commander Zixith sat alone in the darkness, listening to the sound of his empire. Dying around him, the children sang softly as their rescue ship carried them toward the human fleet. They were going home at last, protected by guardians they had never seen but who had loved them from the moment they were born. 3 weeks after the Valkyrie Empire ceased to exist, the Galactic Council held the most important meeting in its 1,000-year history. Representatives from every known species gathered on the neutral station of Harmony Point. But this wasn't their usual boring debate about trade routes or mining rights. This was about survival. Council Speaker Vorth, a tall, blue-skinned diplomat known for his calm demeanor, opened the session with shaking hands. We are here to discuss the recent ... events, Valkyrie space. I believe we can all agree that certain protocols need to be established. The chamber erupted in immediate agreement. Species that had been enemies for centuries were nodding at each other. The war-loving Krexan were sitting next to the peaceful Zentari, and both groups were saying the same thing. Whatever the humans want, we'll do it. The Romulan ambassador stood up first. Romulan Star Empire proposes the immediate establishment of the children protection protocols. Any species that harms the young of any other species will be considered to have declared war on humanity itself. Seconded, called out the Klingon representative, banging his fist on the table. We have seen what happens to those who threaten human children. We do not wish to join the Valkyrie in extinction. The vote was unanimous. Every single species, from the mightiest empires to the smallest trading federations, agreed to the new protocols. The rules were simple. Children of all species were now under the protection of humanity. Harm a child anywhere in the galaxy, and you would face the full technological might of Arya, the human fleet. But the real surprise came when the meeting moved to practical matters. The Ferengi Alliance would like to offer our services, announced Ambassador Grek, standing up with his arms full of data pads. We can provide the finest educational software in the galaxy, specifically designed for human children. We also have delicious, nutritious snacks that meet all human dietary requirements. The Vulcan delegate raised an eyebrow. The Vulcan Science Academy wishes to establish exchange programs with human schools. We believe human children could benefit from our logical teaching methods, while our young could learn about human creativity and emotion. Not to be outdone, the Andorian representative jumped to his feet. The Andorian Empire offers our services as security consultants for human colonies. Our ice warriors are experts at protecting the innocent. Soon the entire council chamber had devolved into what could only be described as a bidding war. Everyone wanted to help with human children, and they were competing with increasingly ridiculous offers. The crystalline beings of silica offered to build beautiful playgrounds. On every human world, the gaseous entities of the Nebula Collective promised to create spectacular light shows for children's birthday parties. Even the mysterious observers, who had remained neutral in every conflict for millions of years, offered to share their advanced medical knowledge to help human children stay healthy. Council Speaker Vorth had to bang his gavel repeatedly to restore order. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted beings, please. We need to organize this properly. But the most touching moment came when a small delegation of survivors from former Valkyrie space requested permission to speak. These were the civilians who had lived under Valkyrie rule, the conquered peoples who had suffered under their cruel empire for generations. Their spokesperson, an elderly female from the peaceful Quinn species, stepped forward with tears in her large, dark eyes. "We want to thank humanity," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "For 50 years, we watched our own children taken as slaves. We were too weak to stop it, but humanity saved them all." She gestured to a group of young beings standing behind her, former slaves, who had been freed when the Valkyrie computer systems collapsed. "These children are alive because humans cared about 37 human children they had never met. If you will have us, we would like to help protect human children too." There wasn't a dry eye in the chamber. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the rescued children were experiencing their own happy ending. The reunion at New Geneva Spaceport was broadcast live across human space, and probably half the galaxy was watching. Little Tommy ran into his mother's arms so fast he nearly knocked her over. 7-year-old Ben clung to his grandfather and refused to let go. The teenage girl named Amy, who had been so brave during their captivity, finally allowed herself to cry as her parents held her tight. "Did you know the whole galaxy was trying to save us?" one of the children asked his father as they walked toward the transport that would take them home. His father smiled and ruffled his hair. "The whole galaxy loves you, son, but not as much as we do." The children had become celebrities throughout human space. They received gifts from across the galaxy, toys from the Ferengi, books from the Vulcans, beautiful crystals from the rock people of Titan 7. But more importantly, they had become symbols of something bigger than themselves. Arya's final message to the galaxy came a month later, broadcast to every world, every ship, every communication device in known space. But this time, the message wasn't a warning. It was a promise. "People of the galaxy," the message began, "we want to thank you for your response to recent events. Your willingness to protect all children, not just human children, shows the best of what civilization can be. We are not conquerors. We never wanted to be. We're gardeners, and we believe that children are the most precious flowers in any garden. They need sunlight to grow, water to thrive, and protection from those who would harm them. You've shown us that the galaxy can be a garden where all children can flourish." The message ended with something new. Not just Arya's flower signature, but hundreds of different symbols representing every species in the galaxy. Unity through the protection of innocence. 5 years later, Galactic News Services ran a special report from the former Valkyrie homeworld. The once mighty capital city had been transformed into a nature preserve, with gardens and parks where children from dozens of species played together safely. At the center of the preserve stood a simple memorial plaque. Written in every known word, language, here stood those who forgot that every civilization's future lies in its children. Let us remember their mistake, so we never repeat it. Children's laughter echoed through the gardens as they played under the watchful eyes of parents. From 100 different worlds, above them invisible, but always present,
Arya continued its eternal vigil.
not as a weapon of war, but as a guardian of innocence. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. You can conquer worlds, you can build empires, you can amass great power and wealth. But if you forget to protect the children, you have forgotten what civilization means. And somewhere in the vast network of space, 37 human children who had once been prisoners were now living normal, happy lives, never knowing that their rescue had changed the fate of the entire galaxy.